Learning and acquisition. Language. Language is a medium through which one can express ideas, thoughts, and feelings.
Language is one of the most important and characteristics form of human behavior is almost equal to by Gleason.
There are many languages in the world. It is believed that about 1,600 languages and dialects are spoken in India. Language is a medium through which most knowledge is constructed, and it helps in uniting thoughts and identities of the individuals. Language families. Indo-European languages. The Indo-European languages are a language family native to the overwhelming majority of Europe, the Iranian Plateau, and the northern Indian subcontinent. Hindi, Gujarati, and English. Dravidian languages. The Dravidian languages are a family of languages spoken by 250 million people, mainly in southern India, northeast Sri Lanka, southwest Pakistan, and some regions of Nepal. Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam. Austroasiatic languages in Jharkhand and Central Asia. Dialect. It is a form of language which is spoken in a particular region or by a social group. Regional dialect. Sociolect. Characteristics of a language. A means of communication. Symbolic and dynamic. A structured and unique system. A form of social behavior. A medium of instruction. A carrier of civilization and culture. A system of systems. It has sound, symbols, and vocabulary. It is arbitrary. It doesn't have innate or natural relationship with its meaning. Principles of language teaching. While teaching a language, an instructor, teacher. 1. Principle of motivation. It is a prerequisite to learn a language. It plays an important role in the development of a language. 1. Which of the following is a prerequisite to learning a language? A. Motivation. B. Habit formation. C. Imitation. D. Oral approach. 2. Principle of habit formation. Language learning is essentially a habit-forming process, i.e. a process during which we acquire new habits. In mother tongue, habits are formed unconsciously, while in foreign language it is formed consciously. 3. Principle of imitation. A child imitates her teacher very much. Thus, the teacher must become a good role model for the children. A child learns quicker by imitation. She learns her mother tongue by imitation from her parents, relatives, and teachers. Tape recorder, radio, and gramophone can also be used for the said purpose. 4. Principle of practice and drill. It is said that practice makes a man perfect. As mentioned above, language is a habit-forming process, and habit comes from practices. Sufficient practice and drill should be provided to the learners. Repetitions of things at proper intervals should be done. 5. Principle of oral approach. It is the quickest way of learning. Speech motivates the learners to learn. Introduction of lessons should begin with speech lessons because speech is vital in language learning. Speech must precede reading and writing. 6. Principle of natural order of learning. Listening, speaking, reading, and writing LSRW, are four basic skills of a language. These skills should be taught in their natural order, i.e., LSRW, because a child first listens to the sounds of a language, speaks, and then starts reading and writing. 8. Principle of using mother tongue. Many linguists are against the use of mother tongue in teaching foreign language. Learners become reluctant and demotivated when mother tongue is not used in the class. Inputs from the target language in a simple, graded manner can help. On the whole, use of mother tongue can facilitate the acquisition of foreign language. #Maxims of language teaching. Maxims of teaching are of universal significance. They help the teacher to teach systematically. 1. Known to unknown. It is based on the fact that a learner knows something. It is considered that old knowledge lays the foundation of new knowledge. Previous knowledge of a learner can be used to increase and widen the outlook of a learner. For example, pronoun can be taught only when the learner has a knowledge of noun. 2. Simple to complex. First, simple things should be taught and then complex things. By learning simple things, learners feel encouraged and confident, thus they can easily understand complex things. For example, if learners are to be taught about complex sentences, then they should be first taught about simple sentences. 3. Concrete to abstract. Those things which can be felt with our five senses are known as concrete, real things, whereas things which can be imagined are known as abstract things. Things taught with the help of concrete objects last for longer period. For example, a learner can imagine about golden apple only if he has seen an apple in golden color. 4. Analysis to synthesis. Simply, analysis to synthesis means from detail to summary. A complex problem, when divided into different parts, can be understood easily. For example, when a learner is taught the different parts of a sentence, then he is able to understand the synthesis of sentences. 5. Induction to deduction. In induction, few examples are given and then a conclusion is drawn. In deduction, first a rule is made and then examples are given. Teaching should proceed from induction to deduction. For example, while teaching narration, few examples of the conversion of direct into indirect speech should be given, and then a general rule of the conversion should be concluded. 6. Near to afar. A learner is acquainted with his/her immediate environment. Thus, examples from his/her environment should be given first, and then examples from other environments/surroundings should be cited. This helps in step-by-step learning. For example, while teaching noun, examples from learner's immediate environment, i.e. from class, should be cited, such as fan, desk, chair, and other examples such as train, aeroplane, lake, and river should be given afterwards. 7. Whole to part. The learners should be taught the whole lesson first, and then its parts should be analyzed and studied intensively. For example, first a full sentence should be taught, then its part, subject, predicate, and words should be analyzed. 8. Psychological to logical. While teaching, the interest, aptitudes, capacities, and learners' difficulty levels should be kept in mind. Individual differences of the learners should also be kept in mind. For example, vocabulary and basic structure of a language should be taught first depending on the needs and requirements. In deduction, first a rule is made and then examples are given. Teaching should proceed from induction to deduction. For example, while teaching narration, few examples of the conversion of direct into indirect speech should be given, and then a general rule of the conversion should be conduted. 9. Particular to general. First, particular statements should be given and then a general rule should be formed. For example, few examples of past continuous tense should be given first, and then it should be generalized that this tense is used to denote the actions that were going in the past. It is based on the inductive method. 10. Empirical to rational. Empirical knowledge is based on the observation and experience, whereas rational knowledge implies to arguments and explanation. First, empirical knowledge of the learner should be discussed and then rational views. For example, it can be discussed that how the subject or object of direct speech changes into indirect speech. 11. Actual to representative. For efficient teaching, actual objects should be shown to the learners as far as possible. This helps in concrete learning. For example, while teaching noun, concrete/actual objects can be shown such as fan, chair, apple, and potato, and later they should be represented in the form of pictures or models. 12. Definite to indefinite. The learners should be first taught definite things, and then indefinite things. For example, if definite rules of grammar are taught, then the learners will have good knowledge. In India, English is taught as a second language. Thus, the chief aim of teaching English should be linguistic and practical, so that the learners should acquire practical command over it. According to Thomas and Witt, there are 4 specific aims of teaching English. To understand spoken English. To speak English correctly. To understand written English. To write English correctly. Basically, the following are 2 chief objectives of teaching English. A. Language development. B. Literary development. A. Language development. It means the development of 4 basic skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Listening means the development of semantic aspect of a language, i.e. understanding meaning of what someone says. Speaking is associated with the phonetic aspect of language, i.e. correct pronunciation, spellings, intonation, etc. Reading means phonetic cum graphic aspect of a language. It means looking at a written or printed symbol and translating into appropriate sound. Writing is associated with the graphic aspect of language. Writing helps in the organization of thoughts and ideas. B. Literary development. Literary development means the development of creative thoughts. Besides developing the 4 basic skills, it includes appreciation of language, style, use of language structures, poetry, drama, stories, idioms and expressions, etc. It includes the development of following aspects. To develop interest in English literature. To understand critical views. To develop creative thinking. To develop ability of translation. According to Bloom, the following are the 3 domains of objectives. Cognitive domain. This domain is associated with knowledge. It deals with understanding and development of skills. Affective domain. It is related with feelings. It includes interests, attitudes, appreciation, etc. Under this domain, the learners develop their own perception about their ability. Psychomotor domain. This is related to doing. It deals with the development of motor skills such as the use of fingers and thumbs. In India, English is taught as a second language. To be proficient in English, one should have to be proficient in its constituents: sound, pronunciation, vocabulary, expression and use of words, and structure, sentence structure. But the conditions under which English is taught in India is a matter of concern. It faces many problems which need special efforts. 1. Lack of qualified and efficient teachers. They lack techniques of teaching English. The pronunciation is faulty due to regional influence of speech habits. 2. Defective methods of teaching. In India, English is being taught by the translation-cum-grammar method, which makes the learning boring. Mother tongue is not judiciously used. Main focus is passing the examination through cramming. New methods and approaches are rarely used. 3. Variation in English syllabus. As the educational system is not nationalized, there is no single syllabus for the whole country. It differs from state to state. 4. Lack of teaching materials. Audiovisual aids are very useful in learning a language. Linguaphone, film strips, tape recorder, flashcards, pictures, etc. help in learning the language quickly and effectively, but in India these are rarely used. 5. Overcrowded classes. India, having the second position in the world in population, has overcrowded classes. Thus individual attention is not possible, which is necessary for learning. 6. English alphabetic system. There are 44 sounds, but in English alphabet there are only 26 letters. This makes the learning confusing because it is pronounced by the letter K as in kite or C as in cat. 7. Defective learning system. In India, examination is the beginning and the end. But the examination system is defective. It promotes rote learning. 8. Lack of clear-cut objectives. Students do not know why they are learning English, and the teachers do not know why they are teaching English. Both the students and teachers have only one aim, i.e. to pass the examination. Principles of language teaching. 4. Principle of practice and drill. It is said that practice makes a man perfect. As mentioned above, language is a habit-forming process, and habit comes from practices. Sufficient practice and drill should be provided to the learners. Repetitions of things at proper intervals should be done. 5. Principle of oral approach. It is the quickest way of learning. Speech motivates the learners to learn. Introduction of lessons should begin with speech lessons because speech is vital in language learning. Speech must precede reading and writing. 6. Principle of natural order of learning. Listening, speaking, reading and writing, LSRW, are 4 basic skills of a language. These skills should be taught in their natural order, i.e., LSRW, because a child first listens to the sounds of a language, speaks, and then starts reading and writing. 8. Principle of using mother tongue. Many linguists are against the use of mother tongue in teaching foreign language. Learners become reluctant and demotivated when mother tongue is not used in the class. Inputs from the target language in a simple, graded manner can help. On the whole, use of mother tongue can facilitate the acquisition of foreign language. Maxims of language teaching. 8. Psychological to logical. While teaching, the interest, aptitudes, capacities, and learners' difficulty levels should be kept in mind. individual differences of the learners should also be kept in mind. For example, vocabulary and basic structure of a language should be taught first depending on the needs and requirements. In deduction, first a rule is made and then examples are given. Teaching should proceed from induction to deduction. For example, while teaching narration, few examples of the conversion of direct into indirect speech should be given, and then a general rule of the conversion should be conduted. 10. Empirical to rational. Empirical knowledge is based on the observation and experience, whereas rational knowledge implies to arguments and explanation. First, empirical knowledge of the learner should be discussed and then rational views. For example, it can be discussed that how the subject or object of direct speech changes into indirect speech. 11. Actual to representative. For efficient teaching, actual objects should be shown to the learners as far as possible. This helps in concrete learning. For example, while teaching noun, concrete/actual objects can be shown such as fan, chair, apple, and potato, and later they should be represented in the form of pictures or models. 12. Definite to indefinite. The learners should be first taught definite things, and then indefinite things. For example, if definite rules of grammar are taught, then the learners will have good knowledge. Objectives of teaching English. In India, English is taught as a second language. Thus, the chief aim of teaching English should be linguistic and practical, so that the learners should acquire practical command over it. According to Thomas and Witt, there are 4 specific aims of teaching English. To understand spoken English. To speak English correctly. To understand written English. To write English correctly. Basically, the following are 2 chief objectives of teaching English. A. Language development. B. Literary development. A. Language development. It means the development of 4 basic skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Listening means the development of semantic aspect of a language, i.e. understanding meaning of what someone says. Speaking is associated with the phonetic aspect of language, i.e. correct pronunciation, spellings, intonation, etc. Reading means phonetic cum graphic aspect of a language. It means looking at a written or printed symbol and translating into appropriate sound. Writing is associated with the graphic aspect of language. Writing helps in the organization of thoughts and ideas. The developments of the above skills are prerequisite at the junior/elementary level. If these skills are well developed at this level, then English will not become a burden on the learners. Listening and speaking helps in developing passive command, whereas reading and writing help in developing active command over the language. B. Literary development. Literary development means the development of creative thoughts. Besides developing the 4 basic skills, it includes appreciation of language, style, use of language structures, poetry, drama, stories, idioms and expressions, etc. It includes the development of following aspects. To develop interest in English literature. To understand critical views. To develop creative thinking. To develop ability of translation. According to Bloom, the following are the 3 domains of objectives. Cognitive domain. This domain is associated with knowledge. It deals with understanding and development of skills. Affective domain. It is related with feelings. It includes interests, attitudes, appreciation, etc. Under this domain, the learners develop their own perception about their ability. Psychomotor domain. This is related to doing. It deals with the development of motor skills such as the use of fingers and thumbs. In India, English is taught as a second language. To be proficient in English, one should have to be proficient in its constituents: sound, pronunciation, vocabulary, expression and use of words, and structure, sentence structure. But the conditions under which English is taught in India is a matter of concern. It faces many problems which need special efforts. 1. Lack of qualified and efficient teachers. They lack techniques of teaching English. The pronunciation is faulty due to regional influence of speech habits. 2. Defective methods of teaching. In India, English is being taught by the translation-cum-grammar method, which makes the learning boring. Mother tongue is not judiciously used. Main focus is passing the examination through cramming. New methods and approaches are rarely used. 3. Variation in English syllabus. As the educational system is not nationalized, there is no single syllabus for the whole country. It differs from state to state. 4. Lack of teaching materials. Audiovisual aids are very useful in learning a language. Linguaphone, film strips, tape recorder, flashcards, pictures, etc. help in learning the language quickly and effectively, but in India these are rarely used. 5. Overcrowded classes. India, having the second position in the world in population, has overcrowded classes. Thus individual attention is not possible, which is necessary for learning. 6. English alphabetic system. There are 44 sounds, but in English alphabet there are only 26 letters. This makes the learning confusing because is pronounced by the letter K as in kite or C as in cat. 7. Defective learning system. In India, examination is the beginning and the end. But the examination system is defective. It promotes rote learning. 8. Lack of clear-cut objectives. Students do not know why they are learning English, and the teachers do not know why they are teaching English. Both the students and teachers have only one aim, i.e. to pass the examination. #Learning and acquisition. Acquisition. When language is learned naturally and without any systematic practice, it is called acquisition. It refers to the process of learning a native or a second language because of the innate capacity of human brain. Learners acquire a language when it is used in natural environment. It also means an unconscious process that occurs when language is used in real conversation. When the learners acquire second language, it is influenced by the language transfer, i.e., by the learner's language that they already know. Second language acquisition becomes more effective when it is practiced in familiar situations. It is an active process. It usually refers to first language acquisition. #Language acquisition stages. Prelinguistic/cooing stage, 0 to 6 months. Babbling stage, 6 to 9 months. Holophrastic stage, 9 to 18 months. Two-word stage, 18 to 24 months. Telegraphic, 24 to 30 months. Multi-word stage, after 30 months.
अधिगम का अर्थ और परिभाषा।
What is learning?
अधिगम एक ऐसी मानसिक प्रक्रिया है जिसके द्वारा व्यक्ति निरपेक्षता की ओर बढ़ते हुए तथा अपने अनुभवों का लाभ उठाते हुए अपने व्यवहार में परिवर्तन तथा परिमार्जन करता है।
Learning is a relatively permanent change in behavior that occurs as a result of experience.
मनोविज्ञान में अधिगम वह प्रक्रिया जिसके द्वारा अभ्यास या अनुभव के कारण संभावित व्यवहार में अपेक्षाकृत स्थायी परिवर्तन होता है। अधिगम भी अनुभव, अभ्यास या व्यायाम के माध्यम से मौजूदा ज्ञान, कौशल, आदतों या प्रवृत्तियों में संशोधन प्राप्त करने की एक प्रक्रिया है।
#learning. When a language is learnt in a systematic way, it is known as learning. Learning a language is an all-inclusive process. Learning is a meaningful process. Learning is done with the use of skills and practice. According to Palmer, learning is essentially a habit-forming process, a process during which we acquire new habits. Learning is a conscious process and it is more effective when it is done in a meaningful situation or familiar environment. Learning without interest is known as rote learning. According to Richard E. Mayer, learning is the relatively permanent change in a person's knowledge or behavior due to experience. According to this definition, we can focus on three things. The duration of the change is long-term rather than short-term. 2. The point of change is the content and structure of knowledge and memory or the behavior of the learner. 3. The cause of the change is the learner's experience in the environment rather than fatigue, motivation, or physical condition. According to Susan Ambrose, learning is a process that leads to change, which occurs as a result of experience and increase the potential of improved performance in future learning. So, we can say that learning is a process of gaining knowledge and expertise. #types of learning. There are 3 types of learning. 1. Motor learning. Most of our activities in day-to-day life refer to motor activities, e.g. walking, running, driving, climbing, etc. All these activities involve muscular coordination. There are 3 types of learning. 2. Verbal learning. This type of learning involves the language we speak, the communication methods we adopt, e.g. signs, pictures, symbols, words, sounds, etc., are the tools used in such activities. There are 3 types of learning. 3. Conceptual learning. In this form of learning, we require higher-order mental processes like thinking, reasoning, and intelligence. With the help of these, a child learns different concepts. #learning. Translanguaging. This term was created by Williams. In a general term, it means teaching a learner 2 or more languages to become bilingual or multilingual. It also means using multiple language together. Code switching. It happens when a person switches on from one language to another language within a single conversation, like cold drink Fanta High. Learning is a systematic process. It is a gradual process. It is a conscious process. Everyone has a different rate of learning. Teachers' knowledge and experience also impact the learning process. Learning modifies the existing knowledge, experience, and behaviors. Motivation decides learners' speed and intensity of learning. Use of grammatical rules and vocabulary. Formal situation. Factors affecting learning. Personal factors. Environmental factors. Learner-related factors / Motivation.
AGE शिक्षार्थी की आयु.
Maturity. Intelligence. Aptitude. Fatigue. Physical and mental health. Interest. Attitude. Willingness to learn aspiration level. Teacher-related factors / Teaching learning activities.
पाठ्य सहगामी क्रियाएं.
Knowledge of the subject and behavior.
विषय का ज्ञान व शिक्षक का व्यवहार.
Teaching method and reinforcement. Factors related to content /
विषय वस्तु की उद्देश्य पूर्णता. पाठ्यक्रम की संरचना व प्रकृति. विषय वस्तु का क्रम, आकार व मात्रा. अभ्यास का उचित विभाजन आदि. कक्ष में छात्रों के बैठने की समुचित व्यवस्था. विद्यालय व परिवार का वातावरण. कमरों में रोशनी तथा हवा का प्रबंध. उपकरण एवं प्रयोगशाला की व्यवस्था.
Learning curves. Curve of equal returns. Positive acceleration or concave curve. Negative acceleration or convex curve. S-shaped curve. Plateau in learning. Learning curves. Curve of equal returns.
समान निष्णादन वक्र. इस वक्र को रेखीय त्वरण वक्र लिनियर एक्सेलरेशन कर्व भी कहते हैं. जिस प्रकार चित्र में दर्शाया गया है इसे एक सीधी रेखा में व्यक्त करते हैं. यह वक्र तब बनता है जब व्यक्ति प्रत्येक प्रयास में सीखने की मात्रा समान रहती है. अधिगम की प्रक्रिया में यह चक्र बहुत कम देखने को मिलता है.
Positive acceleration or concave curve. इस प्रकार की वक्र रेखाओं में प्रारंभ में उन्नति कम दिखाई देती है पर बाद में अभ्यास के साथ साथ सीखने की गति बढ़ जाती है. यह वक्र तब बनता है जब व्यक्ति प्रारंभ में मंद गति से सीखता है, बाद में दिन प्रतिदिन उसकी सीखने की गति बढ़ जाती है. यह वक्र अधिगम में कई बार देखने को मिल जाता है. NEGATIV एक्सेलरेशन और कॉन्वेक्स कर्व. उन्नतोदर वक्र ऋणात्मक उपलब्धि वाला वक्र. इस प्रकार की वक्र रेखा में आरंभ में वक्र बढ़ता है लेकिन बाद में वक्र पठार का रूप ले लेता है. यह वक्र तब बनता है जब व्यक्ति प्रारंभ में तेजी से सीखता है और बाद में सीखने की गति मंद हो जाती है. अधिगम की प्रक्रिया में यह वक्र अधिकतर देखने को मिलता है. S-shaped curve. इस प्रकार के वक्र में शुरू में सीखने की गति धीमी होती है और बाद में तेज होती है और कुछ समय बाद तक तो तेजी बनी रहती है. उसके बाद यह क्रमशः धीमी होने लगती है. यह वक्र तब बनता है जब व्यक्ति कभी मंद गति से और कभी तेज गति से सीखता है. इस वक्र रेखा का रूप अंग्रेजी के अक्षर S की भांति होता है.
Plateau in learning.
सीखने की प्रक्रिया में प्रगति समान रूप से नहीं होती तथा सीखने में कुछ समय तक प्रगति रुक सी जाती है. सीखने की इस रुकावट की अवस्था को अधिगम का पठार कहते हैं. जब सीखने के प्रयास का सीखने की मात्रा पर प्रभाव नहीं पड़ता उसे अधिगम का पठार कहते हैं. पठार का अर्थ व परिभाषा. भूगोल में पठार उस समतल स्थान को कहते हैं जो दो पहाड़ियों या पर्वत श्रेणियों के बीच पाया जाता है। इसीलिए सीखने के वक्र में जहां ऐसी दशा दिखाई देती है उसे सीखने का पठार कहा जाता है, अर्थात पठार का अर्थ हुआ प्रगति का स्थिर होना। प्रो शून्य हंसराज भाटिया, प्रोफेसर H.B. भाटिया के अनुसार सीखने के दौरान आगे न बढ़ने की अवस्था पठार है। छात्र इस अवस्था में कोई प्रगति नहीं करता है। पठार के कारण रीजन ऑफ प्लाटो। प्रोफेसर क्रूज ने सीखने के पठार होने के निम्नलिखित कारण बताए हैं। 1. रुचि का न होना। 2. थकान। 3. आदतों का पुनर्गठन न होना। 4. सीखने यह काम करने की गलत विधि का होना। 5. समझने की कमी होना। 6. परिश्रम कम करना। 7. कार्य में उत्साह न मिलना। 8. प्रयत्न करना बंद कर देना। हालिंगवर्थ के अनुसार इसके निम्नलिखित कारण है। 1. प्रयत्न बंद करना। 2. गलत तरीका अपनाना। 3. नई प्रविधि की आवश्यकता। 4. अभिप्रेरणा खत्म होना। 5. प्रगति की मात्रा का नगण्य होना। इसके अलावा कुछ अन्य कारण है। 1. रुचि का भाव। 2. शारीरिक शक्ति कम होना। 3. समझने में कठिनाई और कमी। 4. अप्रभावकारी विधियों का प्रयोग। 5. उचित विधि को स्थायी रूप से न अपनाना। 6. बुरी आदतें। 7. दोषपूर्ण पर्यावरण। 8. थकावट। 9. मंद बुद्धि होना। 10. अभिप्रेरणा की कमी होना। सीखने के पठार के निवारण। एलिमिनेशन ऑफ प्लेटोज। एक उपयुक्त कारणों को दूर करने के लिए कुछ प्रमुख निवारण निम्नलिखित हैं। 2. अभिप्रेरणा देना। 3. थकान दूर करना। 4. क्रिया में समन्वय एवं व्यवस्था स्थापित करना जिससे उचित ढंग से कार्य हो सके। 5. रोचक और मनोरंजक नवीन शिक्षण विधियों का प्रयोग करना। 6. व्यक्तिगत विशेषताएं और सूचियों का ख्याल रखना। 7. दोषपूर्ण पर्यावरण में सुधार करना। 8. बुरी आदतों को छुड़वाने का प्रयास करना, अच्छी आदतों का विकास करना। 9. अस्वस्थ और रोगी का उपचार करना और उपयुक्त सहायक सामग्री प्रदान करना। 10. शिक्षण की गति सीखने वालों की अधिगम क्षमता के अनुसार करना।
#Role of grammar in learning a language. Introduction. Aims of teaching grammar. Strategies of learning grammar. Techniques for teaching grammar. Developing grammar activities. Introduction. Grammar is the study of the organization of words into sentences that is based on certain rules. It is a system of language with the help of grammar words are used, classified and structured together to form coherent spoken or written communication. Although grammar does not occur first in the process of learning a language, grammar is central to the teaching and learning of languages. It is known that children acquire their first language without overt grammar instructions. They absorb grammar rules as they hear, read, and use the language while communicating. According to Professor Nelson Francis, Grammar is the set of formal patterns in which the words of a language are arranged in order to convey meanings. It gives the learner's ability to speak and write correctly and enables them to use formal language patterns properly for describing a thing. Grammar is central to the teaching and learning of languages. One of the most difficult aspects of language is to teach well. It is known that children acquire their first language without overt grammar instruction. They will absorb grammar rules as they hear, read, and use the language in communication activities. Aims of teaching grammar. To develop a student's insight into the structures of English language. To enable the students to develop their understanding about the rules of English grammar through use and practice. To enable the students to assimilate the correct patterns of the language without rote memorization. To enable the students to speak and write correctly. To develop a scientific attitude toward the language. Strategies of learning grammar. Learners are often frustrated by the disconnection between knowing the rules of grammar and being able to apply those rules automatically in listening, speaking, reading, and writing. This disconnection reflects a separation between declarative knowledge and procedural knowledge. Declarative knowledge. It is knowledge about something. Declarative knowledge enables a student to describe a rule of grammar and apply it in pattern practice drills. Procedural knowledge. Procedural knowledge is knowledge of how to do something. Procedural knowledge enables a student to apply a rule of grammar in communication. Strategies of learning grammar. 1. Relate knowledge needs to learning goals. Relationship between declarative knowledge and procedural knowledge should be developed, and it should be related to the goals for learning the language. 2. Apply higher order thinking skills. Development of declarative knowledge can accelerate development of procedural knowledge. Giving learners the opportunities to compare it with other languages, they will know how to draw on critical thinking and analytical skills. 3. Provide plentiful, appropriate language input. Declarative develop both procedural and knowledges on the basis of the input that the learners receive. Attention should be paid to the relationships among form, meaning, and use for a specific grammar rule. 4. Use predicting skills. All verb tense and aspect, sentence length and structure, and larger discourse patterns may contribute to the distinctive profile of a given communication type. For example, in both an English history textbook and an English newspaper article, past tense verbs are used almost exclusively. Limit expectations for drills. Mechanical drills, in which students substitute pronouns for nouns or alternate the person, number, or tense of verbs, can help students memorize irregular forms and challenging structures. By doing mechanical mech drills, students do not develop the ability to use grammar correctly in oral and written interactions, because these drills separate form from meaning and use. Grammar is boring. Communicative drills encourage students to connect form, meaning, and use because multiple correct responses are possible. These drills should be based on the real-world tasks that students will need to perform using the language. Instructors can use audio-taped simulations to provide input. Practice by asking and answering questions can be done. Techniques for teaching grammar. The goal of grammar instruction is to enable students to carry out their communication purposes. Overt grammar instruction teaches the grammar point in the target language or the student's first language or both. The goal is to facilitate understanding. present grammar points in written and oral ways to address the needs of students with different learning styles. Be sure the examples are accurate and appropriate. They must present the language appropriately. Use the examples as teaching tools. Focus examples on a particular theme or topic so that students have more contact with specific information and vocabulary. Gap-filling grammar exercises should be promoted. Suggestions for teaching grammar effectively. The lesson should be planned beforehand. Method of teaching should be adopted keeping in mind the age and general standards of learners. The materials should be taken from then learners' textbooks. Sufficient practice/work is to be done. Teachers should use appropriate teaching material aids like charts, flashcards, pictures, graphs, etc. Demonstration of how grammar is to be used in contextual situation is very important. For evaluation, the objective type test should be used. Relevance of grammar instruction. In the communicative competence model, the purpose of learning grammar is to learn the language of which the grammar is a part. Instructors, therefore, teach grammar forms and structures in relation to meaning and use for the specific communication tasks that students need to complete. Error correction. Teachers need to be careful not to focus on error correction to the detriment of communication and confidence building. Teachers also need to build students' confidence in their ability to use the language by focusing on the content of their communication rather than the grammatical form. Teachers can use error correction to support language acquisition and avoid using it in ways that undermine students' desire to communicate in the language. Teachers can use error correction to guide them and give alternatives as possible corrections. Methods of teaching grammar. There are 4 main methods of teaching grammar. 1. The traditional method. 2. The informal method. 3. The reference or correlation method. 4. The inductive and deductive method. 1. The traditional method. In this method, grammatical items are taught with the help of a grammar book, which contains definitions, rules, examples, and exercises. The main procedure in this method is from rule to example. It emphasizes on rote learning of rules and definitions. Students find it least interesting and monotonous. In this method, grammatical items are taught with the help of a grammar book, which contains definitions, rules, examples, and exercises. The main procedure in this method is from rule to example. It emphasizes on rote learning of rules and definitions. Students find it least interesting and monotonous. 2. The informal method. This method advocates the teaching of grammar not by rules but by usages. When grammar is taught in the context of real-life situations, it is known as pedagogical grammar. This method demands a lot of practice and time for learning the grammatical items on the part of the students. The students do not get systematized knowledge of grammar. Functional grammar. It looks at language in context with real situations. It pays attention to the way language is actually used in communicative context. It focuses on the actual function of words and word patterns. It helps the learners to derive meaning from texts. 3. The reference or correlation method or incidental method.
This method is also called the incidental method as grammar is taught incidentally in this method. The sentence patterns, structures, etc., that are used in the textbook lesson or compositions are taught during the teaching of the lesson. This method lays stress on the application of the rules and their usage. It is not considered a complete method as grammatical items are taught only incidentally. It can interfere with the normal teaching. 4. The inductive and deductive method. Inductive and deductive method is based on psychological maxims of learning and makes the active participation of the students. It has no place for rote memorization as the rules and definitions are discovered by the students themselves. Thus it stimulates their thinking and reasoning power. This method is considered to be the best method, as it follows certain educational maxims from known to unknown, from simple to complex, from general to particular, from concrete to abstract, etc. This method has two processes. Inductive process. Presentation of examples in a systematic way. Observation and analysis of examples. Generalization/generation of rule or definition. It is suitable for the primary level. This method has two processes. Deductive process. Presentation of the rule or the definition. Verification and application of the rules. Practice for the application of the rule. Grammar should be taught informally at the early stage with the inductive and deductive method and incidental method at the middle stage and traditional method at the higher stage. This method has two processes. Developing grammar activities. Larson-Freeman pie chart is used as a guide for developing grammar activities. Grammar activities that relate form to meaning and use can be developed. These can be developed in the following manners. Structured input. Describe the grammar point, including form, meaning, use, and give examples. Provide oral or written input, audio tape, reading selection, that addresses the topic. Review the point of grammar, using examples from the material. Structured output. Ask students to practice the grammar point in communicative drills that focus on the topic. When instructional strategies focus on structure or form, it is known as explicit grammar instruction, EGI. Communicative output. Have students do a communicative task that provides opportunities to use the grammar point. Have students do a communicative task on the topic. In communicative drills, none of the content is set in advance. #grammar exercises/drills. There are three types of grammar exercises/drills which are found in the textbook. These are as follows. Mechanical drills. Each prompt has only one correct response, and students can complete the exercise without attending to meaning. Mechanical drills are the least useful because they bear little resemblance to real communication. They only require parroting of a pattern or rule. They encourage memorization of irregular forms and vocabulary items. Because they test only memory capacity, not language ability, they are best used as quizzes and given relatively little weightage in evaluating student performance and progress. Each prompt has only one correct response, and students must attend to the meaning to complete the exercise. Meaningful drills can help students to develop understanding of the workings of rules of grammar because they require students to make form-meaning correlations. They have only one correct answer. Communicative drills. Communicative drills require students to be aware of the relationships among form, meaning, and use. In In communicative drills, students test and develop their ability to use language to convey ideas and information. Assessing grammar proficiency. In order to provide authentic assessment of students' grammar proficiency, an evaluation must reflect real-life uses of grammar in context. This means that the activity must have a purpose other than assessment and require students to demonstrate their level of grammar proficiency by completing some task. Activity based on audio tapes of public address can be converted into an assessment by having students respond orally or in writing to questions about a similar tape. In this type of assessment, the instructor uses a checklist to evaluate the student's understanding and/or use of grammar in context. Syntax. In linguistics, syntax is the study of principles and process by which sentences are constructed in a particular language. It refers directly to use the rules and principles that govern the sentence structure of any individual language. Dangling modifier. A dangling modifier is an ambiguous grammatical construct whereby a grammatical modifier could be misinterpreted as being associated with a word other than the one intended or with no particular word at all. A modifier modifies the subject, but in dangling modifier the modifier seems to modify an object. Example. Turning the corner, a handsome school building appeared. Here turning the corner modifies the narrator, but it seems to modify the school building. Ted learning plat. At the age of 8, my family finally bought a dog. Here at the age of 8 modifies the author, but it seems to modify the family. Reaching the station, the sun came out. Here reaching the station modifies the narrator, but it seems to modify the sun. Role of grammar in learning a language. Relevance of grammar instruction. In the communicative competence model, the purpose of learning grammar is to learn the language of which the grammar is a part. Instructors, therefore, teach grammar forms and structures in relation to meaning in use for the specific communication tasks that students need to complete. Error correction. Teachers need to be careful not to focus on error correction to the detriment of communication and confidence building. Teachers also need to build students' confidence in their ability to use the language by focusing on the content of their communication rather than the grammatical form. Teachers can use error correction to support language acquisition and avoid using it in ways that undermine students' desire to communicate in the language. Teachers can use error correction to guide them and give alternatives as possible corrections. Methods of teaching grammar. There are 4 main methods of teaching grammar. 1. The traditional method. 2. The informal method. 3. The reference or correlation method. 4. The inductive and deductive method. The traditional method. In this method, grammatical items are taught with the help of a grammar book, which contains definitions, rules, examples, and exercises. The main WW procedure in this method is from rule to example. It emphasizes on rote learning of rules and definitions. Students find it least interesting and monotonous. The informal method. This method advocates the teaching of grammar not by rules but by usages. When grammar is taught in the context of real-life situations, it is known as pedagogical grammar. This method demands a lot of practice and time for learning the grammatical items on the part of the students. The students do not get systematized knowledge of grammar. Functional grammar. It looks at language in context with real situations. It pays attention to the way language is actually used in communicative context. It focuses on the actual function of words and word patterns. It helps the learners to derive meaning from texts. The reference or correlation method or incidental method. This method is also called the incidental method, as grammar is taught incidentally in this method. The sentence patterns, structures, etc., that are used in the textbook lesson or compositions are taught during the teaching of the lesson. This method lays stress on the application of the rules and their usage. It is not considered a complete method, as grammatical items are taught only incidentally. It can interfere with the normal teaching. Remedial teaching. The word remedial means to rectify, improve, or remedy something. Whether it is maths, reading, or spelling, defining the problem is as important as defining the fix. Remedial teaching is the teaching or instructional work carried out to provide remedial measures to help the pupils to get rid of their common or specific weaknesses. Remedial teaching methods is a method of instruction that is aimed at helping students who are struggling with a particular subject or skill. The primary goal of remedial teaching strategies for teachers is to identify and address the root causes of a student's difficulties, rather than simply providing them with extra practice or repetition of the same material. The aim of remedial teaching is to give additional help to pupils who, for one reason or another, have fallen behind the rest of the class. Children with learning difficulties have the same psychological needs and characteristics as other children. Thus, depending upon the general or specific nature of the weaknesses or learning difficulties of the pupils, one has to take appropriate steps for the organization of remedial teaching for the needy pupils. The learning difficulties. Poor memory. Short attention span and are easily distracted by other things. Relatively poor comprehensive power. Lack of learning motivation. Lack of self-confidence and relatively low self-expectation. Weak in problem-solving power. Fail to grasp information effectively and mix things up easily. Have difficulty in understanding new/abstract concepts. Need more time to complete assignment or tasks. Apart from various learning difficulties, pupils may have different abilities and style of learning. Some are better in visual learning while others are more competent in audio learning. Certain pupils have to learn through sense of touch or practical experiences. Remedial teachers, therefore, should design diversified teaching activities and adopt various teaching methods to help pupils develop their potential and remove the obstacles in learning. Objectives of remedial teaching. Each pupil is different in terms of academic standards, classroom learning, learning ability, and academic performance. But some of these children may be less able to organize their perceptions or to comprehend abstract ideas and concepts. Some of them may have poor memory, poor level of motivation, short span of attention in work situations, or associated behavioral problems. The main objective of remedial teaching program is to provide learning support to pupils who are not as good as their peers in performance. With the help of school curriculum and teaching strategies, a teacher provides learning activities and practical experiences to pupils according to their abilities and requirements. Teacher also designs individualized educational programs with intensive remedial support to help pupils consolidate their basic knowledge in different subjects, master the learning methods, strengthen their confidence, and enhance the effectiveness of learning. Teachers should provide systematic training to develop pupils' generic skills, including interpersonal relationship, communication, problem solving, self-management, self-learning, independent thinking, creativity, and the use of information technology. Remedial teaching lays the foundation for pupils' lifelong learning, help them develop positive attitudes and values, as well as prepare them for future studies and career. Hashtag principles of helping pupils with learning difficulties. 1. Teaching preparation. Before preparing their lessons, teachers should identify pupils' diverse learning needs as soon as possible so that they may design appropriate teaching plans to facilitate pupils' effective learning. 2. Devise various learning activities. Teachers must devise different learning activities with the same teaching objective to develop pupils' varied abilities and skills in problem solving. It is more effective for teachers to adopt a series of relevant and simple teaching activities than assigning one long teaching activity. 3. Teaching approaches. Teachers should give concrete and valuable examples before proceeding to abstract concepts by way of simple and easy steps at a pace in line with the learning abilities of pupils. Teachers may teach new concepts from different perspectives by various approaches so that pupils can grasp the ideas through meaningful and repeated illustration. 4. Provide clear instructions. Pupils with learning difficulties are less competent in understanding written language. Therefore, teachers should give pupils short and clear instructions to avoid confusion. They must explain clearly the arrangement of each learning activity. 5. Summarize the main points. In the course of teaching, teachers should always sum up the main points in teaching and write the key phrases on the board to enhance pupils' audio and visual memories. Teachers can guide their pupils to link up the knowledge they learn from class with their life experiences so as to enhance the effectiveness of learning. 6. Enhance learning interest and motivation. Pupils with learning difficulties may lose their interest in learning. Therefore, teachers should adapt the curriculum to meet the needs of pupils. With fewer pupils in the remedial teaching program, teachers can design interesting activities coupled with reward scheme to stimulate pupils' interest. Hashtag strategies of remedial teaching. 1. Individualized educational program, IEP. To fulfill the learning needs of individual pupils, the Individualized Educational Program, IEP, aims to reinforce the foundation of learning, help pupils overcome their learning difficulties and develop their potentials. Individualized educational programs should include short-term and long-term teaching objectives, learning steps, activities, and reviews to ensure that the program is implemented effectively. Teachers must evaluate the effectiveness of the work and try to gather opinions of pupils for improvisation and betterment. 2. Peer support program. Teachers may train up pupils who perform better in a certain subject to become little teachers and who will be responsible for helping schoolmates with learning difficulties in group teaching and self-study sessions as well as outside class. Peer support program helps pupils reinforce their knowledge and develop their communication and cooperation skills as well as good interpersonal relationship. 3. Reward scheme. To motivate pupils, teachers must implement reward scheme which focuses on guiding pupils to set their own objectives and plans and positively reinforcing their good performance. To design the rewards, teachers must take note of the following. I. Set clear and specific targets. 2. Set achievable objectives. 3. Give diversified rewards to accommodate pupils' interest. Give rewards instantly. 4. Review and revise the reward scheme regularly. V. Invite parents/guardians to help children improve their work. 4. Handling pupils' behavior problems. Teachers should observe the following when dealing with the behavior problems of pupils. I always observe the performance of pupils in class and their behavior in groups. 2. Establish close relationship with pupils, develop mutual trust and listen carefully to what they say. Challenges of teaching language in a diverse classroom. Introduction. Teaching a language in a diverse classroom is a challenge as well as an opportunity depending on the teacher's capability. It is well established that bilingualism/multilingualism offers cognitive advantages to the teacher. It is most likely that the new language to be taught may not interest the learners initially, but they gradually develop a sort of attraction as they learn it bit by bit and get applause or appreciation for the achievement. India is a land of diversity. Diversity exists in culture, food as well as language people speak. In diverse languages and almost 22 official languages are recognized by Government of India. According to NCF 2005, multilingualism is constitutive of the identity of child and a typical feature of Indian linguistic landscape. This linguistic diversity should be used as a resource readily available, as a classroom strategy and a goal by creative language teacher. Today, we know that bilingualism or multilingualism confers definite cognitive advantages. Every child feels secure and accepted by adhering to use of multilingualism as a resource. Effective understanding and use of languages enables the child to make connections between ideas, people and things and to relate to the world around. Importance of English language. English in India is a global language in a multilingual country. According to NCF 2005, a variety and range of English teaching situations prevail here owing to the twin factors of teachers' proficiency in English and pupils' exposure to English outside school. The goal of second language acquisition is attainment of basic proficiency in English and later development of language into an instrument for an abstract thought and knowledge acquisition through literacy. We must understand that diversity of language poses some challenges and opportunities to English instructors in India. More work, more efforts are needed. All teachers should be proficient to impart teaching in English in ways appropriate to their situation and levels based on some knowledge of language learning. Major challenges of teaching English in India. Teaching of English suffers from the general malaise that afflict the educational system of India. Policymakers that if English has to be at all learnt it has been dawned upon the country's educational and taught well, some effective measures must be taken. 1. Overcrowded classrooms. Overcrowded classrooms generally reduce a teacher's ability to teach English effectively and pay individual attention to the learners. All the learners don't come from the same socio-linguistic and socio-cultural background. Division of class in groups becomes a difficult option. It is essential that the member of each group be naturally congenial. The teachers may find that they have to make a few changes before the groups are all happily settled. 2. School environment. The English language teaching needs a new and functional environment, and this may be hard to have. Peer teaching, role play and group activities are rare in Indian classroom. The class listens passively. The learners are not encouraged to ask questions. 3. School curriculum. The teaching of English in India has been text-oriented since the beginning. As a result, even after English is being taught in school and college for several years, learners fail to learn the language, they fail to write in acceptable English, use appropriate English and converse in English. 4. Faulty reading habits. Faulty reading habits among learners pose a major challenge for teachers who have to teach English to them. Some students read by putting fingers on the words, which hinders their concentration. Some children move backwards rather than going forward, and many times they read in low murmuring sound. 5. Lack of practice. It can also be a problem for a student, as English has a vast vocabulary along with numerous homophones, phrasal verbs, etc. While teaching English in a class, correcting spellings and pronunciation of the words is a big challenge for a teacher. 6. Exam-oriented. The English language learning syllabus is created wholly from the examination point of view. As a result, the content does not focus on raising the levels of communicative competence of the students and is confined to solving the examination paper. Suggestions of teaching English in diverse classroom. Appreciating the individuality of each student is important. While generalizations sensitize us to important differences between groups, each individual student has unique values, perspectives, experiences, and needs. The teacher should be aware of how the influence of one's own culture, language, social interest, goals and values could prevent a teacher from learning how best one could teach the students of culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds. The teacher should also try to understand how students' cultural background affect their perceptions, self-esteem, values, classroom behavior, and learning. The teacher must try to make the students feel welcomed, affirmed, respected, and valued. Teachers should also learn students' pattern of communication and various dialects that affect their classroom learning and how second language learning affects their acquisition of literacy. Teachers' knowledge of students' diverse culture informs a teacher, and she can conduct teaching along with a sincerely caring attitude, which may result in increased participation in learning process by the students. The teacher should make extra efforts to eradicate socio-psychological problems of the students by motivating them and giving them some responsibility. Interaction session between teacher and the students should be more. Teachers should always try to converse in English with the learners. One should keep talking with students about day-to-day things. The children will learn to converse once the icebreakers are done. When they will talk, they will learn. Planning of lessons should be done extensively and in advance. Such examples should be taken which reflect different cultures, experiences, genders, etc., to include all students in learning. Teachers should use different teaching methods like group discussion, collaborative learning, fun activity to meet the variety of learning needs. The teacher should also collaborate with parents and caregivers on children's literacy development and should not rely on preconceived notions of the importance of literacy within students' families. Children suffering from various disorders, learning disabilities. Some students have unique challenges that make learning in a traditional classroom difficult, e.g., visual or hearing impairments, attention deficit disorder, any handicap, chronic illnesses, etc. Learning disorders that are most conspicuous usually revolve around reading, writing, or math. Dyslexia. It is a learning disability in reading. Basic reading problems occur when there is difficulty in understanding the relationship between sounds, letters, and words. Reading comprehension problems occur when there is inability to grasp the meaning of words, phrases, and paragraphs. Dyscalculia, learning disabilities in maths. Learning disabilities in maths vary greatly, depending on the child's other strengths and weaknesses. A child's ability to do maths will be affected by language learning disability or a visual disorder or difficulty with sequencing, memory, or organization. Dysgraphia. Learning disabilities in writing can involve the physical act of writing or the mental activity of comprehending and synthesizing information. Basic writing disorder refers to Expressive writing disabilities indicate a struggle to organize thoughts on paper. Dyspraxia. This type of disability refers to problems with movement and coordination in cutting, writing, gross motor skills such as running or jumping. A motor disability is sometimes referred to as output activity from the brain in order to run, jump, write or cut, meaning that it is related to the output of information something. The brain must be able to communicate with the necessary limbs to complete the action. Asphasia and dysphagia. Language and communication learning disabilities involve the ability to understand or produce spoken language. Language is also considered an output activity because it requires organizing thoughts and verbally explain something or communicate with someone else. Signs of language-based learning disorder involve problems with verbal language skills, such as ability to retell a story and the fluency of speech, as well as the ability to understand the meaning of word, parts of speech, directions, etc. Auditory processing disorder. An inability to distinguish subtle differences in sound or hearing sounds at the wrong speed make it difficult to relate to words and understand the basic concepts of reading and writing. Visual processing disorder. Problems in visual perception include missing minor differences in shapes, reversing letters or numbers, skipping words, skipping lines, and having problems in eye-hand coordination. Visual perception can affect gross and fine motor skills, reading comprehension, and in maths. ADHD. Attention deficiency hyperactivity disorder. Attention deficiency hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, is not exactly a learning disability, but it can hamper or disrupt learning. Children with ADHD often have problems sitting still, staying focused, following instruction, etc. Autism. Difficulty in mastering certain academic skills can be due to development disorders such as autism and Asperger's syndrome. Children with autism may have trouble in communicating, reading body language, learning basic skills, making friends, and making eye contact. Role of listening and speaking, function of a language. In the process of learning a language, listening can be considered as the first step. Listening is a key to all effective communication. Listening is the ability to accurately receive and interpret message in the communication process. Speaking is also a crucial part of learning and teaching second language. It helps learner to organize their thoughts in a meaningful and logical sense. 3. Listening. Listening comes first in the natural way of learning a language and forms the foundation for communicative competence in the new language. Listening is receiving language through ears. It is an oral input which involves a sender, a message, and a receiver. When we listen something, we have to identify sounds of speech and process them into words and sentences. Speech, rhythm and pronunciation, etc., are learned through listening to appropriate language models. Listening in any language requires active engagement of learners, focus and attention. According According to International Listening Association, listening is the process of receiving and constructing meaning from and responding to spoken and or non-verbal messages. Listening is a highly complex, interactive process by which spoken language is converted to meaning in the mind. As this definition suggests, listening is more than just hearing. The most crucial part of the listening process is thinking on converting to meaning what one hears. Hashtag types of listening. 1. Discriminative listening. It is first developed at a very early age and is the most basic form of listening. It does not involve the understanding of the meaning of words and phrases, but merely the different sounds that are produced. 2. Comprehensive listening. It involves understanding the messages that are being communicated, and it is fundamental to all listening subtypes. In order to be able to use comprehensive listening, the listener first needs appropriate vocabulary and language skills. 3. Informational listening. Whenever anyone listens to learn something, she is engaged in informational listening. Some examples of informational listening are listening to the news or watching a documentary or discussing a technical problem with a computer. Informational listening is less active than many other types of listening. 4. Critical listening. When listeners have to evaluate a message and respond with their opinion, this is called critical listening. One needs to scrutinize what is being said and play an active role because it usually requires you to make a decision, form an opinion, or solve a problem. Hashtag aims of listening skills. The primary aims of developing listening skills are to provide listening practice. To understand and infer concepts, ideas, facts, etc., by merely listening. If one hears carefully, she may be able to understand fully what is being said and infer the underlying ideas. To provide an ability to identify the speaker's purpose and tone by careful listening. After listening carefully, one should be able to carry on verbal interaction with others. Careful listening will lead to learning a language properly. Hashtag strategies to focus on listening process. A few important strategies can be followed at the time of teaching learning process of language. They are as follows. 1. Integrative metacognitive strategies. These strategies can be divided into 3 categories. I. Before listening. Set a purpose or decide in advance what to listen for. Decide if more linguistic background or knowledge is needed. Determine whether to enter the text from top down, attend to overall meaning, or from the bottom up, focus on the words and phrases. 2. During listening. Verify prediction and check for inaccurate guesses. Decide what is important and unimportant to understand. Listen/view again to check comprehension. Ask for help. 3. After listening. Evaluate comprehension and strategy use. Evaluate comprehension in a particular task or area. Evaluate overall progress in listening and in particular types of listening tasks. Decide if the strategies used were appropriate for the purpose and for the task. Modify strategies if necessary. 2. Using authentic materials and situations. Authentic materials and situations prepare students for the types of listening they will need to do when using the language outside the classroom. One-way communication. Radio and television programs, public address announcements. Airports, train/bus stations, stores, speeches and lectures, telephone. Customer service recordings are means of one-way communication. This type of communication helps students identify the listening goal, to obtain specific information, to decide whether to continue listening, to understand most or all of the message. 2. Two-way communication. In an authentic two-way communication, the listener focuses on the speaker's meaning rather than the speaker's language. The focus shifts to language only when meaning is not clear. Language input comes in the form of teacher talk, listening activities, reading passages, language heard and read outside the class. #Speaking skills. Good speaking skill is the act of generating words that can be understood by listeners. A good speaker is clear and informative. Speech is normally produced by manipulating the airstream coming out of the lungs. Speaking is an act of conversing or expressing one's thoughts and feelings in spoken language. Pronunciation, enunciation, clarity, pace, projection and expression are speaking skills. Learning to use eye contact when speaking is another skill used in communication. To speak often implies conveying information. It may be from an informal remark to a scholarly presentation to a formal address. #Types of speaking situations. There are 3 kinds of speaking situations in which we find ourselves. 1. Interactive. Interactive speaking situations include face-to-face conversations and telephone calls in which we alternate between listening and speaking and in which we have a chance to ask for clarification, repetition, or slower speech from our conversation partner. 2. Partially interactive. Speaking situations can be a public speech where the convention is that the audience does not interrupt the speech. The speaker checks whether he is understood or not from the audience's faces. 3. Non-interactive. Few speaking situations can be totally non-interactive, such as when recording a speech for a radio broadcast or performing in a play or reciting a poem. #Aims of speaking skills. The primary aim of developing speaking skills is to develop the habit of speaking sentences clearly and comprehensibly. Be able to express feelings and emotions in speech or statements. Be able to critically evaluate ideas and beliefs of others and to draw logical conclusions. Enable the use of correct words, spellings, stress, rhyme, fluency. Pause and appropriate phonetic transcription. Make the learner a good and confident speaker. Using minimal responses. Sometimes, learners who lack the ability to participate in oral interaction are helped to build up a stock of minimal responses that they can use in different types of exchanges. This situation enables a learner to focus on what the other participant is saying, without having to simultaneously plan a response. Recognizing scripts. Some communication situations are associated with a predictable set of spoken exchanges. A script, greetings, apologies, compliments, invitations and other functions that are influenced by social and cultural norms often follow patterns or scripts. In the transactional exchanges involved in activities such as obtaining information and making a purchase, the relationship between a speaker turns and the one that follows it can often be anticipated. Using language to talk about language. Language learners are often too embarrassed or shy to say anything when they do not understand another speaker or when they realize that a conversation partner has not understood them. Instructors can help students overcome this reticence by assuring them that misunderstandings and need for clarification may occur in any type of interaction. Hashtag suggestions for developing speaking and listening skills. The class should be divided into small groups. Instructors/teachers serve as a good model for the learners. Learners generally imitate their teachers. Thus, pronunciation, stress, rhythm and intonation of the teacher should be good. At the primary level, speaking activities should include greetings, informal requests, asking personal information, sharing stories, experience and interests. Language skill can be learned by activities through or based on situations. Individual attention must be given to learners. One or two periods per section be allotted for oral conversation exclusively. The teachers should have a sympathetic outlook towards listening and speaking shortcomings of learners. Language is the ultimate means of communication. An agreed code exists in all languages according to the culture of its country. Hashtag various uses of listening and speaking skills. Children use their listening skills to improve their understanding of concepts, facts, ideas and feelings, etc. They focus on and try to comprehend the speaker's meaning. Understand particular sound that are connected with certain objects. Children try to understand the correct pronunciation of words. Children try to understand the characteristics of English speech and sounds, including stress and intonation patterns. By hearing the language, children become able to describe the world, make sense of life's experiences and get things done. Children learn to use language as a tool for thinking collectively and alone. Children use their vocabulary to express their feelings and emotions through use of different words. Children learn to use language as the best tool for communication and thinking under the able guidance of their teachers. Some scholars feel that speaking language skills should be directly taught to children. There is an implicit belief that the subtle skills of active listening and reasoned speaking will develop simply through children's involvement in whole class and small group dialogues. All children can benefit from exposure to good models for speaking and listening. Therefore, it is necessary that learners are provided with listening practice in authentic situations. Hashtag language skills, LSRW. Basic skills. Teaching of a language is the development of 4 basic skills, i.e. listening, speaking, reading and writing. These are generally known as LSRW. The development of these skills must be in their sequential order and in an integrated manner, only then these can be bestly learnt. These skills are related to each other in the following ways. The mode of communication, whether oral or written. The direction of communication, whether receptive or expressive. Thus, these can be summarized as basic skills, ORAL or written, receptive, listening, reading, expressive, speaking, writing. Hashtag developing skills. Listening and speaking are known as primary skills, thus, these must be developed first. Speaking and writing are known as reinforcement skills, they must be given equal importance. The development of these skills helps in the improvement of psychological and linguistic aspects of the learners. These should be developed in an integrated manner. Besides these skills, thinking skills should also be developed. Thinking involves imagination, language, concept, and proposition. Basic interpersonal communication skills, BICS, should be promoted. These skills refer to linguistic skills needed in everyday, social face-to-face interactions. Hashtag listening skill. It is an oral, related with hearing, input. It involves a sender, a message, and a receiver. Learning of a language starts from listening. Speech, rhythm, pronunciation, etc. are learned by listening to appropriate language models. It requires active engagement, thus, learners' awareness of listening should be raised. Listening forms the foundation for communicative competence in the new language. It is a receptive skill involving learning, processing, and evaluating. Hashtag listening procedure/micro skills. It involves the following micro skills. Recognizing stress, rhythm patterns, tone patterns, and intonation contours. Discriminating among the distinctive sounds and deducing meaning from it. Recognizing word boundaries. Detecting key words. Conveying information, i.e. transactional listening. Being attentive and maintaining eye contact. Avoiding distractions. Interactive/active. It is a face-to-face or both parties conversation, i.e. conversation. It provides feedback. It helps in understanding both parties by listening and responding. There is a chance for clarification and repetition. Examples: telephone conversation, face-to-face, non-interactive. It is a one-way conversation. It does not provide feedback. It does not do so. There is no such chance. Examples: radio, television films, public announcements. Hashtag listening strategies. Different listening strategies are followed for different listening purposes. These strategies are as follows. Top-down strategies. These strategies are listener-based. The listener has background knowledge of the topic or situation or text and the language. It includes extensive listening skill. These include listening for the main idea, predicting, drawing inferences, summarizing, bottom-up strategies. These strategies are text-based. The listener relies on the combination of sounds, words, and grammar that creates meaning. It includes intensive listening skill. These include listening for specific details, recognizing cognates, relation of sound and word with each other, recognizing word order pattern. Hashtag metacognitive strategies. Listener plans for listening and decides which listening strategies serve best in a particular situation. Listener monitors his comprehension and the effectiveness of the selected strategies. Listener evaluates comprehension and strategy by determining whether he has achieved his listening goals and if the combination of listening strategies selected was effective one. It should be noted that learners' comprehension improves and their confidence increases when they use top-down and bottom-up strategies simultaneously to construct meaning. Hashtag listening activities. A listening activity may have more than one goal or outcome, but each listening activity has as its goal the improvement of one or more specific skills such as identification or recognition of message, Orientation or determination of major facts about message. Main idea comprehension. Detail comprehension, i.e., identifying supporting details. Replication or reproduction of the message orally or in writing. Hashtag speaking. Speaking skill. It is a productive or expressive skill in oral mode. It is a crucial part of learning. It is considered as a measure of knowing a language. It is fundamental to human communication in daily lives. Objectives of teaching speaking. To converse freely on topics of everyday life. To make the learners efficient in reading and writing. To make the learners efficient in vocabulary and use it in proper context. To train the learners in the mechanism of language through an informal approach. To develop verbal linguistic ability among the learners. Speaking procedures / micro skills. Pronouncing the distinctive sounds of a language clearly. Using stress, rhythmic patterns and intonation patterns. Using correct forms of words. Using vocabulary appropriately. Using correct word order. Emphasizing main idea. Speaking situations. Speaking situations are classified into the following 3 categories. 1. Interactive. It includes face-to-face conversation or telephone calls, where there is a chance of clarification and repetition. 2. Partially interactive. In this situation there is no or little chance of interruption on the part of audience. X. Speech, lectures. 3. Non-interactive. This situation is one way where there is no chance of clarification and repetition. X. Recorded speech. Speaking strategies. Following speaking strategies can be followed. Using minimal responses. Learners have to indicate understanding, agreement, doubt or other responses by responding yes or no or by other gestures. Recognizing scripts. There are different scripts for different situations. For example, scripts of greetings, apologies, compliments, invitations and other occasions are different. The learners have to use different scripts on different occasions. Hashtag using language to talk about language. Misunderstanding in the process of learning, which can occur either on the part of listener or speaker. Different clarification strategies can opted. This will infuse confidence among the learners and enable them to manage the various communication situations that they may encounter outside the classroom. Hashtag knowledge areas of speaking. They are 3 areas of knowledge of speaking. These are mechanics. It means using right words, vocabulary, in the right order, grammar, with the correct pronunciation. Functions. It means transaction of information and interaction. Social and cultural norms. It means what to speak, about what to speak, in what situation and with whom to speak. Hashtag techniques for teaching speaking. The chief aim of teaching skills is to develop communicative efficiency. This efficiency can be developed through language input, structured output, and communicative output. Language input. It includes teacher talking listening activities, reading passages, and the language heard and read outside the class. Through these inputs, the learners begin to produce language themselves. It may be content-oriented. It emphasizes information and includes descriptions of learning strategies and examples of their use. Form-oriented. It focuses on ways of using the language. It means using specific language in specific context with appropriate rate of speech, pause, length, etc. Presentation of a lesson is content-oriented as well as form-oriented input. The amount of input provided in the target language depends on learners' listening proficiency and the situation. B. Structured output. It focuses on correct form. Learners have options for responses. Textbook exercises form a good structured output practice activities. It allows error correction and increases accuracy. C. Communicative output. This means completing a task by eliminating the information gap. Examples. Verbal description of an event. Verbal description of a picture. It allows the learners to practice language freely. Hashtag speaking activities. Speaking activities help in developing communicative proficiency. The following activities should be carried out to develop speaking skills. When the learners speak first time in the target language, they face inhibition. Thus, they should be allowed to speak about whatever they can, irrespective of grammatical errors, enhance their vocabulary and gradually making correction. This will increase confidence among them. At the primary level, the speaking activities should include greetings, informal requests, asking personal information, sharing stories, experiences and interests, and employing appropriate gestures. Pronunciation practice helps in developing correct speech habits. Thus, the pronunciation errors should be corrected without any humiliation. Correct pronunciation increases both accuracy and fluency. To improve pronunciation, recorded model of sounds should be used. Learners should not be pressurized to give answer quickly. This will help the learners to overcome their shyness. Communicative output activities such as debates and discussions followed by role play should be performed. Instructor/teacher serves as a good model for the learners. Learners, generally, imitate their teacher. Thus, pronunciation, stress, rhythm and intonation of the teacher should be good. Learners should be encouraged to talk more and more. This will develop good speaking skills among them. Audiolingual drills should be used. Feedback on grammar or pronunciation problems should be given. Eliciting questions, which provide information or make the learners to react, should be asked. These questions should be clear-cut, i.e. unambiguous. Learners should be asked to describe a picture. Task-based games should be performed. These games are learner-centered and integrate various linguistic skills and construct a cooperative environment. Proper gestures, i.e. decorum in spoken English, should be maintained. Tongue twisters like Sister Susie sews shorts for soldiers, how high honor holds his haughty head, etc., can be used. These improve pronunciation. Assessing speaking skills. Assessment of learners' speaking skills means assessment of learners' communicative proficiency. It also means the assessment of pronunciation, stress, rhythm, and intonation. It assesses learners' use of appropriate volume, clarity, and gestures in individual or group situations. Assessment of speaking skill can be done by asking the learners to recite a poem, read a passage, perform debate, discussions or role plays, asking and answering questions, describing a picture or an event, describing a journey, etc. Functions of speaking. It provides insight to organize ideas in different ways. It helps in improving speech. It helps in correct pronunciation, stress, rhythm, and intonation. #reading. Reading skill. It is a receptive skill in written form. It is a decoding process which enables the learners to extract thoughts, facts, and information from the printed symbols. Decoding means deciphering sounds in words and sentences. It is an activity with purpose. According to William S. Gray, reading is the process of recognizing printed and written symbols, involving such habits as accuracy in recognizing the words that make up a passage, span of recognition, rate at which words and phrases are recognized, rhythmical progress of perception along the lines, and accurate return sweep of the eye from the end of one line to the beginning of the next. Thus, reading involves the interpretation of ideas symbolized by written or printed language. It is an interactive process that goes on between the reader and the text, resulting in comprehension. Objectives of teaching reading. Reading helps the learners to absorb vocabulary, grammar, and sentence structure. Pronounce words correctly. Understand meaning of words. Obtain information. Have cultural knowledge and awareness. Acquire speed and skills needed in real-life situations. Gain general knowledge and widen mental horizon. Components of reading. There are 3 components of reading. Recognition of the graphic marks, i.e. looking at the printed symbols. Correlation of these graphic marks with formal linguistic element, i.e. producing sound. Correlation of sound with meaning, i.e. visualizing concrete idea or sense. Methods of teaching reading. There are 2 methods of teaching reading as follows. A. Letter method. Alphabetic method. Phonic method. B. Non-letter method. Word method. Phrase method. Sentence method. Story method. Alphabetic method. It is the most commonly used method. In this method, names of letters are taught in their alphabetic order. Its teaching sequence is letter, words, phrases, and sentences. It is dull and monotonous because letters themselves have no meaning, and the pronunciation of a word is not the combination of sounds of the letters constituting the word. X, knife, no, etc. Phonic method. Sounds of letters are taught instead of their names. It is confusing because sounds of some letters are similar, for example.
S, as, tăinăchet, as, tăinăcănpur, s, as, tăinăsait, s, as, tăinăsait.
Word method. In this method, pictures of words are shown. It has meaning but no sense. All the words cannot be shown by the pictures. Phrase method. In this method, complete phrase is taught, for example, at the bottom, over the head, in the shop. It does not express complete idea. Sentence method. In this method, a complete sentence is taught. Learners easily understand the meaning and sense from the sentence. This method is regarded as the best method for teaching reading. Story method. It is an advanced method over sentence method. It creates interest. It conveys a complete unit of thought. It puts heavy load on the memory. Stages in reading. Preparatory reading. It is a pre-reading stage. It is the stage in which language structures and vocabulary are taught, i.e. giving meaning of different words and phrases. Productive reading. In this stage, letters and words are emphasized. In this stage, habit of reading is formed. Imagination realization. In this stage, reading becomes vigorous. In this stage, learners become accustomed to the use of books. Hashtag types of reading. Types of reading are as follows. A. Loud reading. B. Silent reading. C. Intensive reading. D. Extensive reading. Hashtag loud reading. It is also known as oral reading / aloud reading. It develops mechanics of reading. The sounds of a language that are significant for meaning. The force with which syllables are said. The rise and fall in pitch level. Where to pause or not. Objectives. To help in correct pronunciation, intonation, stress, and rhythm. To help in conveying ideas. To help in understanding meanings. To prepare the learners for silent reading. Hashtag loud reading. Advantages. It helps in proper method of reading. It develops the skill of speech. It helps in correct pronunciation, pause, etc., and develops confidence among the learners. It is good for the beginners. Disadvantages. It is not a source of pleasure. It is not useful in later life. It forms a barrier in extensive reading. Hashtag silent reading. Reading in actual life is mostly silent reading. Silent reading enables the learners to comprehend the meaning. The speed in silent reading is more than in loud reading. Objectives. To read with ease, speed, and fluency. To expand / enhance vocabulary. O. To develop interest. To read with comprehension. Not to disturb others. To gain pleasure as well as information. Movement of lips during silent reading retards the speed of reading. Hashtag intensive reading. It means reading the text in parts for detail, i.e. it is a detailed study of the text. It is local comprehension. Learners master at the productive level all the new vocabulary and grammatical items they come across. Objectives. To increase active vocabulary. To develop taste for reading. To extend knowledge and command over English. To understand each and every detail precisely. Advantages. It allows model reading by the teacher and reading aloud by the learners. It explains meaning of new words. It helps in learning grammar. It helps in improving power of expression. Disadvantages. It is long and uninteresting. It rarely gives joy and pleasure. It emphasizes too much on language. Hashtag extensive reading. It means non-detailed study of the textbook. It is associated with day-to-day life, like reading a newspaper, an article, or other things. It is done for pleasure. It focuses on main points. It is to train the learners to read directly and fluently in the target language and develop vocabulary. Objectives: to increase passive vocabulary, to develop interest and pleasure, to increase mental horizon by gaining wide knowledge. Advantages: it helps in assimilation of ideas. It enhances silent and individual reading. It reinforces command over English. Disadvantages: no model reading by the teacher. Explanation of new words is not done. There is no learning of grammar. Hashtag reading strategies. Reading strategies help the learners to read more quickly and effectively. Reading strategies are as follows. Previewing. It means reviewing titles, subtitles, section headings, and photo captions to get a sense of the structure and content of a reading. Example, the title, Gulliver's Travels, indicates that the chapter is about the travel experiences of a person named Gulliver. Predicting. It means using prior knowledge of the subject matter and ideas as clues to get the meaning of unknown words. Using knowledge about the author to make predictions about writing style, vocabulary, and content. Example, Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. The learners can predict that Gulliver went somewhere and had written his experiences. But from the name of the author they will predict that the story is based on adventure, imagination, and fantasy. Skimming. It is quick survey of the text to get main idea. All unwanted chunks are left out. Example, in Gulliver's Travels, when the learners quickly read the chapter to find out where did he go and was he saved or not is known as skimming. It is a fast reading activity. Scanning. It means examining everything closely and minutely, i.e. getting detailed information or specific information. When the learners read the chapter Gulliver's Travels in detail to know where did he go, whom he met, how he or they behaved, what did he do there, what did they do with him, how he went there, etc., then it is known as scanning. Synthesizing. It means putting together information to highlight important points and drawing conclusion at your own. Paraphrasing. It means stopping at the end of a section to check comprehension. It is to get the main idea and details in own words. It is like talking to oneself. Examples. After reading the above extract, if the learner stops to find whether there was a river or spring or any inhabitant, or why did Gulliver go on the land, or how was the land, it is paraphrasing. Hashtag developing reading activities. Reading activities should be based on the following concepts. To increase communicative competence of the learners. To build confidence of the learners. To recognize the purpose of reading. To get the main idea or. To get specific idea or. To get pleasure or. To practice or review specific grammatical instructions or to make the learners familiar with the typical structure of a certain type of text. Broadly, reading activities are divided into two categories. A. Pre-reading activities. These prepare the learners for reading. These include previewing, predictions, skimming, reviewing vocabulary and grammatical structures, reading comprehension questions to focus attention on finding answers while reading, guessing from the context. These activities are very crucial at lower levels of language proficiency. B. While reading activities. These activities check learners' comprehension as they read, i.e. comprehending a sentence by putting together the meaning of its constituent words. These includes scanning and reading for pleasure, intensive reading, reading thorough understanding, so that they can answer carefully chosen questions. Reading activities. While teaching reading, the instructor/teacher should focus comprehension from the beginning. At the primary level, reading should be introduced through stories. Learners should be motivated to read more storybooks. This will increase their word power, vocabulary, and the learners will clearly express their views. Vocabulary can be taught directly or through usage or through synonym or antonym. When the learners put their first step in school, i.e. start coming to school, guided reading should be provided to them. Using words from the context in the text can develop reading skills. Guessing meaning from the context helps in increasing vocabulary, which is an important factor in developing reading. Asking prediction questions help in comprehension. Reading more books/materials in the target language enable the learners to distinguish between academic and spoken forms of the target language. Contextual and verbal clues help in gaining meaning while reading between the lines. Silent reading helps in inferring meaning of new words from the context. Meanings of new words should not be given directly. Let the learners to discover the meaning using clues. Assessing reading skill. In the communicative proficiency, learner's reading level is the level at which the learner is able to use reading to finish communication goals. Reading skill can be assessed in the following ways. Providing a reading task with a variety of items. Reading accuracy can be assessed by phonemic sounds, pronunciation, intonational and rhythmic criteria. This can be done through loud reading. Asking comprehension questions. Eliciting learners' existing knowledge in pre-reading discussion. Writing. Writing skill. This skill is of great importance. It is a skill which enables a learner to brainstorm, to do mental exercise. Ideas, organize them, draft, edit and revise his/her work. It is a useful means of organizing thought and giving it precision. About the importance of writing, Francis Bacon said, "Reading makes a full man, conference a ready man and writing an exact man." But some scholars considered it as problem-creating and solving skill. A writer has to depend entirely on his/her written words to convey his/her ideas. It demands the production of orthographic symbols. It reinforces oral and reading work. Without writing, it is very difficult to keep in mind the various aspects of a subject, i.e. it is a means of preserving knowledge. Characteristics of good handwriting. Handwriting should be fair and legible. Gandhiji said, fair and legible handwriting is a tool used to enable us to express what is in our mind, and for people it is almost as important as speech. A good handwriting has the following characteristics: letter style and uniformity. A uniform letter style should be adopted. It should be either slant or vertical. The vertical style is regarded as the best style of writing. Legibility. It means easily readable. Letters should be written correctly and neatly so that they should be easily read. Spacing. There should be proper spacing, gap, between the letters of a word and between a word and another word. Size. The size of the letters should not be too big or too small. It should be moderate. They should be written in due proportion to each other. Simplicity. The letters should be simple. There should be no unnecessary strokes, tails, or loops. These make a letter complex and not legible. Preparatory steps for writing. Following steps should be taken to prepare the learners to write. Freehand drawing. Learners should be asked to draw freely the shapes of various sizes on large papers or sheets. Controlled drawing. Learners should be asked to draw shapes within lines on a paper. Acquaintance with written form. Now the learners should be acquainted with written forms of letters. They should be acquainted with capital letters and small letters. Techniques of teaching writing. In the beginning, the following techniques should be adopted to teach writing. By overwriting. Learners should be asked to overwrite a letter or a word. For this purpose, the teacher should write a letter or a word in the notebook of the learners. Writing books can also be prescribed. With the help of board. The teacher should write a letter or a word in a line on the board and ask the learners to copy them in their notebooks. Copying a line. The teacher should write a line in the notebooks of the learners and ask them to copy it on the whole page. Copying a paragraph. In the later stages, the teacher should ask the learners to copy a paragraph from the textbook. This will help the learners to use punctuation correctly. Teaching writing drill. Writing drill should be performed in the following ways. Training in penmanship. It consists of 2 stages. In the first stage, learners are taught freehand drawing. In the second stage, learners are acquainted with letters. Training in penmanship helps in muscular control. It increases the power of observation and concentration. Copying text. After the learners have achieved sufficient mastery in penmanship, they should be asked to copy a text. The text should not be very lengthy. The copying of the text should be done with slow reading. This will increase their writing as well as reading skill. This will improve their punctuation, which will enhance their accuracy. Their work should be carefully checked. It should be observed that they do not scribble, write quickly and carelessly. Transcribing/transcripting. Transcribe means recording a thought, speech, or data in a written form. Learners should be asked to transcribe a set of words or a sentence. Dictation should be given or a model sentence should be written on the board. Their work should be carefully checked and they can be asked to transcribe the wrong words. Composition. It is the expression of thoughts, ideas, feelings, observations or experiences in written form. Oh, it includes an essay, a story, a letter, a poem or a description. It helps the learners to present their ideas, thoughts, facts or experiences in an organized and logical way. It enables the learners to use appropriate vocabulary. #writing skill. It helps in developing writing as well as communication skills. It is based on the following two principles. Development of concepts of unity, i.e. organizing paragraphs around the topic. Development of coherence or process writing, i.e. arranging ideas in a logical sequence. In the beginning, the learners should be asked to write a few sentences on a given topic. It should be guided and controlled. After the learners have gained mastery over the guided and controlled composition, they should be asked to use words and sentences on their own and express themselves freely. Approaches to teaching writing. Different approaches should be followed to teach writing. These are as follows. Guided writing. Guided writing is a type of writing in which the teacher provides the situation and helps the class to prepare it. In this, the teacher continuously provides feedback, direction, and expansion of ideas to the learners. Controlled to free. Learners are first given sentence exercises, then paragraph to copy or manipulate by changing questions to statements, singular to plural or present to past or vice versa. Free writing. Learners are asked to write freely on any topic without worrying about grammar and spellings. This allows the learners to express their ideas, thoughts, or feelings freely. In this approach, no correction should be made, only comments should be expressed. Paragraph pattern. Learners are encouraged to copy a paragraph and analyze the form of a model paragraph. Then they should be asked to put scrambled sentences into a paragraph order, or insert or delete sentences in a paragraph or choose appropriate topic sentences. Grammar syntax organization approach. Learners are asked to follow grammar syntax organization approach, i.e. writing grammatically correct sentences. Communicative approach. It is based on the principle learning by doing. Learners are asked to write their personal experiences. Process approach/advanced approach. It means generating ideas, expressing, drafting and redrafting them. It includes the following stages. Pre-writing stage, it means collecting ideas, facts or information. Writing stage, it means drafting and organizing the collected ideas, facts or information. Post-writing stage, it means revising and redrafting the ideas, facts or information. It should be noted that one or more than one approaches can be adopted depending on the objective of teaching writing and the ability of the learners. Graphology, it is the study of one's handwriting to know his/her personality traits. #teaching of spellings. Importance of teaching spellings. Spellings are of great importance. Spellings help in writing correctly. Correct spellings help in enhancing accuracy and meaning. Misspelled word creates confusion about the meaning and sense. Causes of wrong spellings. Learners of English find it difficult to develop the 4 basic skills LSRW because of the lack of correlation between English spelling and English. Pronunciation. This fault occurs because English spelling system is irrational and illogical. Some of the causes of wrong spellings are as follows. Irregularity of English spellings and pronunciation. It is the most important cause for wrong spellings because of the following reasons. Same letter, different sounds. Some letters written in different words are pronounced differently. For example, C is pronounced as S in receive but as K in cock. Likewise, G is pronounced as G in beggar but DZ in gentleman. Silent letters. Many words have silent letters. Hashtag teaching learning materials. Introduction. Teaching aids are an integral component in any classroom. Many benefits of teaching aids include helping learners improve reading comprehension skills, illustrating or reinforcing a skill or concept, differentiating instruction, and relieving anxiety or boredom by presenting information in a new and exciting way. Learning and teaching is an ongoing process in which teachers try to find out ways to make the teaching process effective and interesting. The language teaching is a dynamic process and the teacher is well versed with the objectives of teaching English. Teaching materials should be selected keeping in mind the objectives of English so that skills of reading, understanding, listening and speaking can be developed. Hashtag teaching aids or teaching materials. Teaching materials is a generic term used to describe the resources teachers use to deliver instructions. Teaching materials can support student learning and increase students' success. Teachers should design appropriate learning activities in line with focus on teaching. On the basis of low starting point, small steps, diversified activities and instant feedback, teachers should encourage pupils to participate actively during the learning process to help master the skills and methods of collaborative learning. Teachers should exercise their discretion in the appropriate use of teaching aids. Appropriate teaching aids not only help to enhance pupils' interest in learning, but will also consolidate the knowledge they learned, thus, achieving the objective of teaching. Common teaching aids are concrete objects, figures, models, word cards, number cards and audiovisual equipment such as tape recorder, headset, wire-free induction loop system and multimedia teaching aids, etc. The design and organization of teaching materials should be pupil-oriented. They should be selected and collated systematically to serve the purpose. Teaching materials provided by the department or other academic institutions may also serve as a reference for teachers. Hashtag characteristics of teaching aids. Teaching aids should be big enough to be seen by the students for whom they are used. Teaching aids should be meaningful and they should always stand to serve a useful purpose. Teaching aids should be up to the mark and updated in every respect. Teaching aids should be simple, cheap, and may be improvised. They should be accurate and realistic. They should be according to the mental level of the learners. Hashtag characteristics of teaching aids. Teaching aids should be able to develop interest of the learners and make them curious. Teaching aids should help in realization of stipulated learning objectives. They should provide reinforcement for better learning. Teaching aids should be able to develop the perception of learners towards the content. Hashtag types of teaching aids. Teaching aids can be classified into three types: audio, video, and audiovisual aids. Audio aids. Audio aids facilitate learning by using the sense of hearing. These aids help the teachers, especially in language teaching. Examples of audio aids are radio, tape recorder, gramophone, linguaphone, audio cassette player, language laboratory, etc. 1. Radio. With the help of radio, a learner gets acquainted with the correct pronunciation drill. In this source, the teacher has no criteria to select the learning material because whatever is aired is the source. But listening to a good English program can definitely change the taste and standard of the listener. Debates, sports events, religious broadcasts, quiz program can really help a learner in listening to good English and adapt himself or herself. 2. Audio cassette player. We all are familiar with audio cassette or DVD player. It can be well utilized in teaching learning process by teacher. It makes teaching very scientific and effective. In this process, subject matter is recorded in DVD and played on the recorder. The student listens to that subject matter and learns it. Through this, the effective native language can be minimized by listening to correct pronunciation, intonation, and stress. 3. Linguaphone. Millions of people in UK and across the world have successfully learned to speak English using the linguaphone. Speaking a language is an active skill, something you learn by doing, not just studying. Everyday words and situations are taken to make the lesson interesting. Listening to native speakers in new language is the most relaxing and involved to learn, helping the learners to associate the sounds with the words and sentences. For Language Laboratory, it is a place where the learners put on headphones and listen to a particular language piece. These labs are set up with a view to provide listening activities specially for English language. The learning material are recorded on audio tapes which are played back by the teacher, and it is to be drilled in the learners under the supervision of teacher. #Visual aids. These types of aids appeal to the learner's visual organs. They help in the attainment of the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor objectives of teaching. Some of the visual tools are chalkboard, softboards, charts, maps, picture and drawings, static and working models, film strips, slide projector, overhead projector, etc. 1. Chalkboard or softboard. It is used to teach sentence structure, new words, and grammatical examples. Also, complex topics can be explained with the help of diagrams and figures. 2. Pictures and charts. These can be used to introduce a new topic or tell a story or teach new vocabulary. 3. Flannel board. These are used to paste inspirational thoughts and ideas of scholars. Headlines of news are also displayed on these boards. For narrative charts, these are used for arrangement of facts and ideas, for expressing the events and the process or development of a significant issue to its point of resolution and improvement over a period of years. 5. Flashcards. These are useful at elementary or secondary stage and can be used for small groups or group discussion. It can also be used for drill and practice or to apply information already gained by students to new situations. 6. Maps and models. These can be used to present geographical facts or to relate complex concepts to students or enhance logical ability in students. #Audiovisual aids. These aids appeal to both the sense organs and visual organs of the learners. They facilitate in attaining the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor objectives of teaching. Some of the prominent audio-visual aids are television, films, and computers. 1. Television. Watching television employs both visual and hearing sensors. It is very effective to develop comprehension ability of the learner, as it can provide better quality instructions. Some educational programs, quizzes and news bulletins can help a learner in understanding concepts and enrich their vocabulary and pronunciation. 2. Cinema or motion pictures. It helps in stimulating the imagination, and mental imagery can be used as a vehicle of thoughts and as a means of clarifying ideas. Learning can be sped up by using movies and pictorial material to supplement textbooks. 3. Computer-assisted language hearing it. Means to present teaching material through computer. The use of computer in teaching learning process is an innovation in education circle. The educational programs are developed with all kinds of media available for presentation. In this, we can make use of graphics, texts, audio and videos. The teachers can prepare content in the forms of soft copy and present it before the class. Information.in files can be stored also in computers for future use. 4. Film strip and slide projector. Film strips are sequence of transparent still pictures with individual frames supplemented with recordings. It is an inexpensive tool when quantity reproduction is required. Slide projector is a small piece of transparent material on which a single pictorial image or scene of graphic image is photographed or reproduced otherwise. #textbook. Textbook is one of the most common teaching material used by the English language teachers in teaching learning process. Requisite and evaluation of a good textbook. Textbook is the area in which the language material is presented and prescribed for teaching and learning English. The different states have different criteria for the selection of a good textbook. While selecting a textbook, certain criteria or points should be kept in mind. Textbooks should be selected keeping in mind the age, interest and individual difference of learners. Textbook is one of the most common teaching material used by the English language teachers in teaching learning process. Requisite and evaluation of a good textbook. Textbook is the area in which the language material is presented and prescribed for teaching and learning English. The different states have different criteria for the selection of a good textbook. While selecting a textbook, certain criteria or points should be kept in mind. Textbooks should be selected keeping in mind the age, interest and individual difference of learners. Textbook is one of the most common teaching material used by the English language teachers in teaching learning process. Requisite and evaluation of a good textbook. Textbook is the area in which the language material is presented and prescribed for teaching and learning English. The different states have different criteria for the selection of a good textbook. While selecting a textbook, certain criteria or points should be kept in mind. Textbooks should be selected keeping in mind the age, interest and individual difference of learners. Textbooks should cover the objectives of English teaching. The textbooks should be free from spelling errors and printing mistakes. It should be attractive and illustrative. A textbook's cover should be attractive and qualitative. Each chapter must contain exercise and practical work pertaining to its content in a textbook. Textbook chapters should be related to experiences which can enlighten us and provide some values. Language should be used according to the age and interest of the students in the textbook. Modern technology has brought textbooks in the form of e-books and e-journals also. In today's world of technological revolution, e-books are available in digital form consisting of text, images or both, and it can be read on the flat panel display of computers or other electronic devices. The e-books offer students, teachers and schools an additional medium or tool of instruction that can support or enhance the learning process. E-books benefit the students physically, academically, and psychologically. Using e-books has some constraints like lack of teachers proficient in using skills required for e-books or the technology is not readily available.